This is Louie in Tuscaloosa. He says, Eddie, to me, you have done for Rock Talk Radio what King Diamond has done for the heavy metal falsetto. Thank you, Lou. He continues, I don't know how true this is, but I once heard that Ron the Hedgehog Jeremy recorded a heavy metal album, however, it didn't do very well. I guess you could call it a stiff. What's with you guys today? It is a Friday. I don't know about that with Ron Jeremy. I know that Ron Jeremy, the noted porn star from the 70s and 80s, if you don't know who he's talking about, I know that Ron Jeremy was quite aligned with a lot of rock and metal artists. And, he would end up sometimes even being in some of the videos and at some of the shows. Now, whether he made a movie, we know he made movies, whether he made a record or not, I'm unaware of that. I just don't know. I do know that he's currently in jail. So he's not going to be promoting the record if he did. Louis finishes his email with Santa Cruz is forever. Which Louis is clearly an old listener. So thank you, Louis. For those that know that story, I'm not going to repeat it again, but this dude Archie from Santa Cruz, and his band threw him out of his own band, and he was supposed to be on the show, and he ended up calling in and couldn't get an answer out of him as to what happened, and he just kept saying Santa Cruz is forever. Here's Jim Maroney, friend in Staten Island. I know Jim. Jim calls in sometimes as well. And Jim writes, Eddie, what was your most memorable backstage experience? Jim, there's been many, but I hate to disappoint you or the audience, but I don't have some real over-the-top crazy story to share. I think when people think and are looking for backstage stories, they're looking for sex, drugs, rock and roll craziness. And I never really had anything along those lines that I can really share with you. But I've had some great times where, I've spent a couple hours after the show in a dressing room drinking and walking out late at night with the band up the ramp at Meadowlands Arena or whatever. Funny stories. There's a few that come to mind. I remember, and I have a photo of this. I brought Ace Frehley to see Skid Row open for Bon Jovi at the Meadowlands Arena back in '89. Ace ended up getting up and playing with Skid Row that day. Skid Row were a new band, super jacked to be meeting Ace. I had just been working with Ace on the label side. So that that was a fun night. I remember being backstage at Slayer at the Roseland in New York City. And back at that time, my good friend Mike Piazza, the Major League Baseball Hall of Famer, was playing for the Mets. By the way, I just saw Mike a couple weeks ago. We hung out in Florida before the Monsters of Rock cruise. He came to the pre-party with me. It was good to see him. He happened to be in Florida, and we got together. It's been a while. But Mike used to love going to the shows with me, but he was always concerned about doing it when the Mets had a game the next day, because he was so under the microscope that if he had a bad day the next day playing baseball, the New York media would be like, well, I heard he was out at a concert last night late at night. This guy's partying too much around town, But we went to see Slayer, and I actually hosted the show. And I remember after the show, the band was like, you guys got to come back, you got to hang out. And they had a Jägermeister machine in their dressing room. And Mike, they kept handing these shots of Jaeger to Mike, insisting that we drank with them. And Mike, it was bad enough he was out late at night, didn't want to get all drunk, be a bigger problem having to play the next day. But Mike, I'm standing next to him and I'm talking to people, he's talking to people, and I kept seeing him take the shots of Jaeger. And it looked like he was drinking them. I'm like, oh man, he's going to be in trouble. But what I didn't realize he was doing was when no one was looking, he was taking it and throwing it over his shoulder. There was like a fake plant in the corner of the room, like a little tree plant. And he kept dumping the shot in the plant when nobody was looking. And I remember Kerry coming over and be like, you want another shot, bro? I'm like, yeah, sure. Because they wouldn't take no. It's like, yeah, man, you're knocking them back. We're having a good time. Well, the only thing that got drunk that night was that plant. Next email on this mailbag special comes from Angel from Texas, longtime listener, member of the Fans of Trunk Nation Facebook. Thank you for that. Band that should have been huge, the Dwight Twilly Band. They were from Tulsa. Buddy band to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. They had moderate success in the 80s, but fell victim to record company disputes. The vocals and guitars were reminiscent of Cheap Trick, Beatles, Big Star, etc. Check out the album Twilly Don't Mind. Dwight Twilly sadly passed away in 2023. He was a great talent. Angel, thank you for that. I am aware of the name and probably would know the hit song, but I don't know much more about Dwight beyond what you're telling me. But I definitely know the name. This is a email about a brush with greatness from Renzo in Miami. He says, I was a bartender at the airport in Miami back in 2000, and one of the Nelson brothers came to have some drinks. He ripped their latest album from his laptop before it was even released and gave it to me. It was awesome. I didn't have a cell phone with a camera at the time for a picture. Love your show, you rock. Well, that's cool, Renzo. I know Matt and Gunnar. Very, very nice people, good people. I last saw them on a cruise. I think it was the On the Blue cruise. I was going to see if Renzo was still a bartender in the Miami airport now. I would pay him a visit because I'm going to be there soon. Getting ready to go out on the Creed cruise, flying into Miami. But he's saying this was 25 years ago, so I'm figuring he's not still a bartender at the Miami airport.